Hello, my name is Stephen Burrell, and however you made it to this website, thank you and welcome. I've written a book, it's called Ave Blue, and I'm going to read an excerpt for you. Ave Blue is the story of a young woman who falls in love with a guy who looks a lot like her older brother who was killed by the police. It also covers many other topics, one of them being growing up black in an inner city in America, and the other is love. In this world, the chances of finding real love are slim. In our youth, we find infatuation. In our young adulthood, we find mistaken love, believing that we've got it all figured out. But that mistaken love can often lead to many miserably wasted years. For some of us, we find strong, durable bonds in those early stages that grow into true love. But for most of us, it's a struggle with the ebb and flow of learning the tendencies of others while we're still trying to figure out the true nature in ourselves. This world is overflowing with solitary souls searching for that right companion. That's someone who can lift your spirits with a smile, whose touch stimulates action, and whose consistent presence inspires focus on what it is we do best. However, and whenever this love reaches your doorstep, hold on tight and express your sincerity in every way possible. For the words of today are the whispers and the windstorms of a tomorrow we must never expect. Is there something or someone to answer to for our lives? There comes a time in every man's life to finally concede who he really is. And I'll be perfectly honest to admit that at first I wasn't too anxious to find out who I was. How am I perceived? At this moment, I'm a convicted cop killer, a filthy ghetto boy who went one step too far and will pay the ultimate penalty, my life. I need to recount my story, if only for myself. From behind the door of this cell and many others similar to it are countless stories of people whose time has come to answer that aforementioned question. I know exactly why I'm here and what my responsibility is. It's simple. I must pay for that police officer's life with my own. It's a cold fact. But once it's over and I'm dead, will vindication have been served? In many cases, vindication does not equate to happiness or joy. Sometimes the sacrifices involved are very difficult to live on without. There comes a time in every man's life. Dinner was ready, and we ate roast chicken, made with my own 2 inexperienced hands. After dinner, we stood by the windows, looking over the rooftops across the street. I moved close to her. Still, she looked out the window as my hands took hold of her waist, and I turned her around to face me. Silently, we looked into each other's eyes. Feeling the attraction of our racing hearts, I pulled her nearer. She reached her arms around the back of my neck and anxiously met my embrace. We kissed gently. Her lips were full and soft. They were, as I was having the pleasure to find, as supple as the rest of her. I found myself completely impassioned in the arms of this woman. I pulled away and held her face in my hands to restrain her fervor. Her eyes were closed, her brows high, and lips slightly parted, awaiting the next surge of contact. I did not disappoint her desire and kissed her again. My hands moved from her face while I was kissing her down her neck to the protruding nipples in her nylon bodysuit. I pinched them gently and she quivered. I backed her slowly to the wall between the bare windows and pressed my body firmly against hers. She returned my kisses hard. We clutched and grasped for air, then held one another tightly, feeling the heat of our bodies pressed together. Softly, she asked me if it would be all right for her to take a bath. Heavily, I sighed, "Sure." I touched the side of her face, then stroked her hair to the back of her head and planted one short kiss on her mouth before I left to clean the bathroom and tub. As I mentioned, this was an old apartment, and the tub was a deep, high-sided job with the old ball and claw feet. I cleaned the room, ran the water, and left a red candle burning for her. When she walked into the room lit by the candle, I believed I must have been living right to deserve the company of such a woman. Her skin glowed under the light of the candle. There comes a time in every man's life, I thought to myself. Enjoy, I told her. I'll be back after I've cleaned up. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a rush of uncertainty. My mind wanted to question why things were going so well with this woman so fast. But my desire would not allow for such hesitation. I cleaned the dishes in the kitchen. As the music played, I heard Ave stirring in the bathwater. When I finished cleaning, I knocked on the bathroom door and asked for permission to enter. She said yes. As I opened the door, the steam from the hot water steeped my shirt, causing it to cling to me. Quickly, I closed the door behind me and looked down at this naked woman in my bathtub. I offered her a fresh glass of wine, and she reached up shyly to accept it. I leaned against the wall, sipping from my glass, and watched her drink. She stretched herself to the back of the tub and leaned her head against the high rim. The bubbles, still dense, were clinging to her breasts, and I could faintly see through them to her glistening wet body. I squatted down with my back against the wall and asked her how she felt. "I haven't felt this relaxed in a long time," she admitted. I could hear her hiding the effect of the alcohol in her speech. I didn't want her to feel inhibited, so I asked a silly question. What did the man with the wine glass in his hand say to the naked woman in his bathtub? "I don't know what," she asked. "I realize you didn't know this before," I said, "but I am Jacques Cousteau's nephew." "Really?" "Yes, and Uncle Jacques taught me one important thing, and that was not to be afraid of the deep end." "The deep end, huh?" she asked. "That's right, and good old Jacques told me that this world is full of deep spots, and under any circumstances, do whatever it takes to survive." "And should I ask where the deep spot is here?" "Well, the last time anyone measured, it was at this end," I said, pointing to the end of the bathtub under the spigot. "What a coincidence," she said. "Tell me, do you make every woman who visits here feel as good as I feel?" "Other women?" "Yes, and don't tell me you haven't got a girlfriend." "I have a naked woman in my bathtub. What do I need a girlfriend for?" She smiled, taking another sip of wine. "Have you got any kids?" "Oh, no," I said. No, thank you. OPs are just fine." "OPs?" she asked. "Yes, other people's. I have fun with other people's kids, and when that fun is over, back they go. No responsibilities, you know what I mean?" "Yeah," she answered, somewhat deflated. "Not that I have anything against them or anything. I just want it to be my choice when I have them. So many brothers have them, and they don't know what to do next. They ain't got time for kids. They're still kids themselves. They want to party, play ball, and get high. Those days should be over once you bring kids into the world. Man, they think it's so easy, but I know." "So you're not ready for kids?" she asked abruptly. "No, I'm not." She suddenly looked hurt, placing the section of hand between her thumb and index finger over her mouth. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted to make love to her. Jesus, I had to clean this up fast. "Your kids are beautiful, though. And if the situation ever presented itself where I had to give myself for two children as beautiful as yours, I'd definitely make the responsible decision to make sure that their futures were happy and secure." I said this without emphasis, looking into my glass. I could feel her eyes shooting sincerity checks my way. That was one thing about me. There were shreds of truth in most everything I said. Just what that shred of truth was depended largely on the future and circumstances. This made it easier for me to cover my tracks when it came time to get out of whatever I'd gotten myself into. Now, this woman was in need. I could sense that. And she was going to get me for that night, or so I thought. She had a sad expression on her face when I took the glass from her hand and placed it on the sink. I knelt next to the tub and began to wash her back. I began kissing her as she leaned back against the high edge. I grabbed the two sides of the tub on either side of her and pushed my kisses on her hard, pinning her against the back wall. She grabbed my forearms as though she wanted to push them away from the rim, but soon gave up on that idea and slid her hands up my arms and around the back of my neck to return my fierce sensation. She soaked my shirt with her body, rising up out of the water, dying to feel our torsos touching. By this time, I was hanging over the tub with this incredibly passionate wet woman hanging from my neck and locked on my lips. My arms gave way from the weight of her, and she pulled me into the water with her. I didn't like that idea at first, but once I got my hands on her body, as she flipped me over and rolled on top of me, I lost all regard. I felt up her body, from the back of her thighs, up to the back of her neck, and then back down. She started unbuttoning my shirt. As she moved up and down, arousing us both, we splashed water over both ends of the tub. I heard the water hitting the floor and worried for about 2 seconds. the bathroom below us, before I was lost again watching her. I kicked my shoes off and onto the floor, then wrestled with my soaked pants. She laughed and bit my lips teasingly. Suddenly she stopped moving and looked at me with a very serious expression. Then she calmly helped me out of my breeches. When they came off, her brows raised at the touch of my manhood. Looking down at me, she said, "Let's see what you've learned from your dear old Uncle Jacques about deep exploration." We wound up warm and side by side in the bed when morning arrived. Her warm back pressed against my chest, and my hand rested between her moist thighs. I pulled it to me, and she raised enough for me to enter. We were both tender and raw, but had to have this one last time before the routines of life took over our dreamy state. It was after this last coitus she mentioned for the first time that I looked like her brother. She was propped up on one elbow and combing my eyebrows with a row of fingernails. My eyes were closed and my mind was replaying the passion and lovemaking from the night. I hummed. "You do," she repeated. "With those thick eyebrows and this Roman nose," she slid her finger down the bridge of my nose. "Is that why you're attracted to me, because I look like him? Maybe. What is it about him that makes him so special?" "He was a good father." "Was?" I asked. "Yes, he's dead now," she said. "I'm sorry." "Yeah, he was a good father. His little girl never wanted for anything." "Was he married?" "No, not yet." "How old was he?" 25. "Jesus, he was young. How did he die?" "He was killed by the police, shot twice in the back." "What?" "Have you ever heard of Detective Herschel Page?" "Of course I have. Page and Manasco, what nigga hasn't heard of them?" "Your brother wasn't the one they killed 2 years ago on Christmas Eve." "That was him. Tamar Blue. Did you hear about it?" "Of course. They exonerated those bastards, didn't they?" "Let them off, you mean?" "Yeah, I'm sorry. No, don't apologize. What was that word you used? What?" "Exonerated." "What was the reason they gave for shooting him?" "They said he pulled a gun on them." "With his back turned?" "Sounds like an execution to me. Did they ever produce this gun?" "Not that I know of. My father was going to take it to court, but the lawyers wanted too much money." "That's a shame." I remember the police saying they investigated the shooting and found no wrongdoing on the part of the police officers. "Was he alone?" "Funny you should ask that, because we believe he was with some friends that night, but they won't talk. They all said he left them around after midnight, but I don't believe them." "You miss him, don't you?" "Yeah, he was my older brother. He taught me a lot. His girlfriend and my niece still live with my mother and father." "Was she with him in that night at all?" "Who? His girlfriend?" "No, she was at my mom's place, her and the baby. He was out with his boys." "What were they into?" "Just drinking and smoking, nothing heavy." "My mom was hurt the most when we lost Tamar. She doesn't talk much anymore. She used to argue and fuss just like any other mother. But after that day, she hardly talks to anyone. It's as though she could not forgive life for being so cruel. I never thought I'd miss her fussing at me for something, anything. It's frustrating for everyone." I looked at this lovely young woman next to me and thought about what I could do for her. I felt for her and her family. This was some deep stuff, and I wondered if I should get involved at all. This was the time to decide whether I should detach my emotions from her plight, and many smarter men would have made up their minds right then and there not to get involved. As I looked again at her, she climbed out of the bed and put on her panties. Her body was for me to see, and me alone at that moment. And she could be mine and mine alone if I wanted. I knew this and thought how lucky I was. Her thighs were muscular, with that orange-brown tone, and little did she know that they clinched my destiny. Or maybe she knew exactly what she was doing all along. She also cooked breakfast. End.